Hey guys, Chris Moran here for WRC USA, continuing the build series of the WRC SBX-2 Nitro buggy. I have bag number 4 here, so let's get to assembling. So this is the rear gearbox, and the pinion is here, the rear shock tower, and the rear center drive shaft, all included in this bag. So there is a couple tricks to assembling these parts in this bag that I do. A couple little things that I think you should stick around and watch this video to find out some information. So the first thing I want to share with you guys is a little modification I make to the actual quick change diff cases themselves. So where the diff goes in and out of, you can see it's a little bit snug dropping in there, and you kind of gotta get it to get past this lip right here. So you see this square edge right here. So basically that square edge is what's getting caught on the diff coming in and out. So whenever your whole car is bolted together, you got your drive shafts you're dealing with, and arms and shock tower, everything's all bolted together. That just makes it that much harder to get your diff in and out. And it's all about being as easy as possible, right? So one step to make it a little bit easier to pull your diff in and out of the car quicker that I do is just take that flat edge that's right there, that square edge, and make it a 45-degree angle. So you can see there is plenty of material there. There's the screw holes and there's the edge. So there's a ton of material there, and it's right now it's a 90 degrees. So basically you're just taking 45 off this right here so that the diff doesn't get caught going in and out. So essentially just take your sanding drum on a Dremel, Okay, so once you've 45'd it, take your X-Acto knife and clean up any of the flashing. And then once it's 45'd, it should look like that, where it's now angled across there, and the diff falls right in and out. Okay, so once we've done that, there is one more modification that I make to the rear gearbox. So our shock tower, if you get to come through there, I run that 4th hole on that shock tower, that inner inside lowest hole is my camber link location that I run pretty much 100% of the time. And when using that location, the turnbuckle actually rubs on this gearbox right here. So that's another little modification I make is just this curve that's on the gearbox. I just take that and kind of pull that down a little bit and add a little bit more cut out there for the clearance of the rear camber link. Well, it doesn't take a ton. It doesn't hit super hard, so just need to take off a little bit and then clean up with the X-Acto. Okay, so it looked like that. I just added a little bit more cut out. Give the camber link some more room. So that's the modification I make to the rear gearbox. Then just make sure you clean up all the loose plastic. You don't want any of that to be left in there to get into the gears. So make sure you clean all that up. Okay, so now then let's talk pinion. This is the last bit of tip for this package would be the pinion shimming. So the manual is going to suggest using one shim inside behind the inner pinion bearing, so spacing the pinion out closer to the diff, which is the standard setting. That's the setting I ran pretty much all of last year. But just recently I experimented a little bit with this, and I actually found that the drivetrain is much smoother and more efficient not using that shim at all. So using no shim there and pulling the pinion in a little bit. So we'll just go ahead and assemble that now. Same thing as I did on the diffs. I used the NMB bearings. So no shim, pop in the bearing, pop the outer bearing on. Make sure you push those bearings in hard, make sure they're all the way in. Double check the teeth on the pinion, make sure there's no burrs or anything that'll make it break in weird. And then drop that in. Alright, so now the key to reliability here and making sure you never have a problem. I see too many people struggle with this. Too many people I see have their center drive shafts come loose or fall off. The only thing you really need to know about Loctiting this is make sure you clean the set screws with brake cleaner before you Loctite it. All the screws and whatnot all come with oil on them, and that, depending on what Loctite you use, can keep the Loctite from working, and that's why it might back out. So clean your set screws with some brake cleaner. And I also, when this is brand new, the first time, will actually use a hex driver and push the rag into the threads on the part and clean the threads of the actual coupler. You could just spray it out too if you wanted, but I don't want to make that big of a mess. So. Also, a tip about Loctite: if you use a liquid form, always shake it if it's been setting for a while. So shake it up, and then put your Loctite on. Make sure you get it coated all the way around the set screw, and push it into the threads all the way around. Okay, start that on there. Now you want to make sure your set screw is on the flat spot of the pinion itself. So take your thumb, push out on the pinion so you know it's all the way out. And without that shim in there, you can't bind it up. Whereas with that shim, you got to be careful not to push it on too far. But like I said, with the shim out, you can't bind it up. So basically push the pinion out with your thumb and then pull the coupler on with your other fingers as tight as you can, and make sure it's pushed all the way on, and then tighten it down and put basically everything you got onto that, and then you should absolutely be perfect, and there should be very minimal movement back and forth play. It's extremely minimal. If it seems like it's excessive, it's don't run it. You either got it not pushed on all the way, or something. So figure out what's going on. Don't run it if it's got excessive play. So. Alright, so now that that's on, wipe off the excess Loctite, and if it's built to that degree, I can put my guarantee on that will never cause you a DNF. So yeah, so just make sure you keep that set screw clean before you Loctite it. Loctite it thoroughly, and make sure you keep good fresh bearings in this pinion. You don't want the pinion to be able to move at all, side to side or back and forth. That's what causes excessive wear to your ring and pinion gears, and that's what causes people to have DNFs and stuff at the track. So don't want those, they're no fun. So yeah, so we'll put the drive shaft together. You want to make sure there's no burrs from all the holes in this. Make sure that can move in there freely, which it does, so that's good. I use this copper anti-wear grease on the CVA shafts. I use it only on the centers, not on the front and rears. So only on the centers, where you want to try to get them to last a little longer. This stuff is kind of messy to deal with, but it has to be a really thick grease if you're going to use grease on this, or it's just going to sling it out of there pretty quick. Even this grease will sling out. The excess. So I like to, when I first build my kit, use the hole that's straight with the set screw on the coupler. That way, as the holes start to wear, you can just rotate it. You can rotate it around to the other holes that's in there as they wear, and keep the same coupler to get more life out of the same coupler. Once you got it in there, you just kind of move it around, spread the grease out, and then try to wipe off the excess grease around the outer edge, just to prevent as much as possible the slinging out the extra grease. So it'll look something like that. Okay. Now then, we will put the little retaining clip on the outdrive. Now there is a little bit of a trick to this I'm going to show you. So basically, you just get it, the first little bit of the coil started, and pop it on about halfway around the coil, and then stick like a fingernail into that coil, and then just rotate, and it'll just sit there and spin itself on. And it snaps on, and then you're good to go. And that is a bulletproof center drive shaft. Okay, that's about all there is to that. Now then, we will go ahead and bolt the rear shock tower on. Nothing really to it. Just screw it on and move on to the next bag. Same thing when you're dealing with brand new plastics. You don't want to get it too hot when you're using the hand drill. You want to take your time, and it just helps with, it helps maintain a stronger thread and get the most life out of the plastic parts. You can, the stronger thread you can get in there when you're building it brand new, the longer that thread's going to last over time. So and like I said, always go and finish by hand. Okay, so then all we got to do is attach the body mount. Same thing, just bolt it on. I do actually just, there's always like little burrs and stuff from the mold. I always clean that up. Just that little bit of extra detail gives you a much more cleaner kit whenever it's finished. So the chassis brace is even more critical on making sure you don't get the threads hot when you thread it in, and building a nice strong thread. So I actually would screw the chassis brace in by hand right from the beginning. I'll never use a hand drill on the body mount. You want the body mount to have the strongest thread possible, and the way to do that is to do it by hand. Nice and tight. Okay, there we are, bag 4 complete. Alright, thanks for watching, guys.